Our speaker tonight is not really a guest. She is one of our own. She is a member of this community and has spoken here many, many times, both on Sundays and Wednesdays. She has become my favorite teaching buddy. We have taught many classes together. This work that we are doing in our community called Healing the Heart of America, Cindy has taken this into her own heart, and she is offering so much of herself. If you don't know, she is the author of SQ21, the 21 Skills of Spiritual Intelligence. She has certified coaches in her work all over the world. Hundreds of people are carrying her work of how do we live this life of wisdom and justice and love. I love her so much. Please give her a warm unity welcome, Cindy Wigglesworth.
Thank you, everybody. It is always an honor and a privilege to be here in my own church home and to see your beautiful faces and hug on you guys. It's just wonderful. How much better could it get? Be here with Unity Houston. So tonight we're going to talk about love and justice. And it is a topic that is part of a larger story around healing the heart of America. And we began this journey in October when Tracy Brown joined me. How many people were here in October? Yeah, so just a few of you. All right. Was it a good evening for you, for those folks who were here? Great. This is an interesting and sometimes difficult topic because in the spiritual world, we spend a lot of time reflecting on ourselves and not so much like how to engage in the outer world where it's all conflict-filled and yucky, you know? But I think the times have come for us to think about that again, like how do I enact my spirituality out in the world? So this is kind of part 2 of that series tonight and then the class tomorrow, where we'll be talking about what does justice look like from a philosophical perspective, but also a very practical perspective. And then in March, we're going to have a conversation about spiral dynamics and where we are on the spiral. People heard about spiral dynamics before? Yes? You raise your hand? Yes? So I think that'll be very enlightening as well. That'll be a couple of Sundays in March. And then in April, I'll be teaching a book called The Righteous Mind at the Young Center of Houston, which is a partner organization with us. So that's what we have planned so far. And we'll see what else is coming. Yes, thank you. When we met back in October, we talked a little bit about the heartache in this country, and it's been a very painful last couple of years where we've had to confront some things that maybe weren't quite so much in our consciousness. Not that they weren't there, but all of a sudden it was up for us to see again. There was a lot of things in our consciousness about race and ethnicity and how we really are not yet at the place we might want to be around so many issues, whether it's around Native Americans, Black Americans, Asian Americans, Latin Americans, or pick your hyphenated group. There's just a lot of work still to be done. A lot of work still to be done on religion issues, particularly for Muslims right now, but also for Sikhs and Jews and others. Gender issues coming up again, whether it's women's rights or LGBTQ or other. Disabled and differently abled people, issues continue. We've made great progress, but there is still more room. We keep seeing there is still more room. Economic inequality being very much on everybody's mind, the disparity, the gaps between the 1% and everybody else being felt more and more painfully. And other subsets of Americans, including white folks who are saying, what about me? I have suffering in my life as well. I think perhaps the one great unifier is we all have pain somewhere. We all have sadness somewhere. So how do we try to move forward and heal the heartache in America? And in one sense, it's a very simple answer. Love, right? God is love. We're trying to be love. Love one another. Love your neighbors, unless they voted that way. Right? If it were easy, we'd already be doing it, right? This is hard, hard work. And a question I've been asking myself is, like my idealism about this country, can I still have it? Can I still feel patriotic? And what do I even mean when I say America? What is it to be an American? What is America about? America is a complicated concept, and I think it means more than one thing. It means a geography, for sure. You know, it's a certain section of planet Earth, but it's also several other countries besides us. America includes North, Central, and South America, and sometimes we forget that, so it's worth acknowledging that. So there is a geography of the United States of America. It is also, however, more than geography. It is also a set of ideals and certain beliefs that we hold very dear to us. And this was really brought home for me when I was reading George Takei's autobiography about the time he was in the internment camps as a young boy for being Japanese American, and during World War II, Japanese Americans were sent into internment camps. And in spite of tremendous hardship, at the end of that experience, his father, who was still a Japanese citizen, became an American citizen. And he said, "Dad, after everything that happened in the internment camps, how can you do this?" And he said, "Son, America's not perfect, but America is a country of ideals, and I believe in those ideals." Just chokes you up, doesn't it? And so we stand for something that's really worth fighting for and uniting for. And those ideals include things, very important things like freedom and equality and justice and government by the people for the people, a radical construct, historically speaking. We stand for religious liberty and freedom of speech. We stand for the right to pursue your happiness, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These were radical step-out ideals. So we're a country of beautiful ideals, and yet we are also a process. America is an unfolding, evolving process. Our founding fathers were not perfect human beings. Many of them owned slaves. They were not really all that excited about people who were not property owners, even white males, being allowed to vote. Women, forget it, not till 1920. So we are an unfolding, evolving understanding of our own ideals. It is easy to become cynical and to point out all the ways in which we fail to live up to our own stated idealism, and yet I think that misses the point. Are we moving forward? 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forwards, 1 step back, but are we still trying? And I think for me, that's what keeps me optimistic and hopeful, is I believe that we can be united in this process of consciously evolving our country. And finally, America is us. It's the people, it's the citizens who live here, the citizens who participate, and that word citizen has really been resonating in my mind, like, what does that mean? And I've had to acknowledge in my own heart that I have been somewhat lazy as a citizen. I've taken a lot for granted. I've never run for office. I don't go knock on doors. I haven't participated in voter registration drives. I vote faithfully. I stay informed. But I think perhaps we're being called to the next level of participation. If we, the people, are going to govern ourselves, we have to participate. And so it's an active inquiry for me about what does citizenship mean as I go forward. So for me, that's what I'm holding in my head, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what and how. It's a huge, complicated question. And I keep coming back to my grounding principle, which is love. This is the church that believes in loving everybody. We were talking about that before, the Love Everybody Church. And, you know, we're the Love Everybody Church, and we mean it. So how can I do that? And for those of you who've heard me speak, you may have seen this image before. When I started trying to describe what I meant by spiritual intelligence, which is my field of expertise, I looked to the spiritual exemplars like Gandhi and Martin Luther King and the Dalai Lama and Jesus Christ and Mother Teresa and these people that we hold up as spiritual exemplars, what made them different. And to me, it was really clear that one of the things you could say about all of them is that they acted with love. So spiritual intelligence is about behaving with love. I wanted to define it as clearly as I could. And if you've ever looked up definitions of love on the internet, oh my goodness, you will get a lot of very different, very lengthy, sometimes academic, really boring definitions of love. And I wanted something simple and easy to remember. I settled on this definition of love a long time ago, and it comes from an Eastern parable, that love is a bird with two wings. One wing is compassion, and the other wing is wisdom. If either wing is broken, the bird cannot fly. And that is, to me, so powerful in its description. Love is compassion plus wisdom. Compassion, the best of the heart, wisdom, the best of the mind, together in loving action. And so as we look at what is love and justice, this is kind of my frame of reference. The actual definition of spiritual intelligence is this, that it is the ability to behave with wisdom and compassion while maintaining inner and outer peace, regardless of the situation. If we could do that even a few hours of each day, what a difference we would make in the world. So let's look a little further at these terms. What do I mean by compassion and what do I mean by wisdom? The best way I know to describe compassion is to look at this kind of a hierarchy of maturity in this field of sort of caring about other people. And I used to start out at apathy, but given what's happened the last couple of years, I've added a lower level. Because a lot of us are existing in antipathy, which means not only do I not care about you, I actively dislike you without even knowing you. So the active dislike at the bottom is kind of where a lot of our political discourse is and a lot of our heartbreak is. I mean, so many people at Thanksgiving and Christmas were like, I don't know if I can even be with my family right now. There's so much anger. So how can we get even from the anger and antipathy up to apathy or neutrality? Like, who would think that would be a positive step, right? But let's take one step forward into apathy, please. Least be neutral. And then we calm ourselves down, and the next step up is sympathy. And sympathy, the way I understand the word, and there are multiple ways, but the way I use it is, I do notice you. I've moved out of apathy. I am uncomfortable when you're suffering, but I'm not really yet in the suffering with you. It's sort of, I'm here, you're suffering near me, it's making me uncomfortable, please stop that. Here's a check, go away. But it's a step forward from apathy. At least I'm noticing that you're suffering and that's having an impact on me. So that's actually developmentally an improvement. Empathy is a big step forward. Empathy, from a psychology standpoint, has two components. The first is emotional empathy, which means I feel your feeling in my body. Like your sadness, I feel it in my body. Your grief, your anger, your joy, I feel it in my body. That's called affective or emotional empathy. The other kind is cognitive empathy, which is I can imagine, even though, like we're not near each other, that if I were in your shoes, I would be feeling. And so it's an act of imagination that, oh gosh, if I had just gone through what you had just gone through, I would be feeling so frustrated, outraged, whatever. Those two forms of empathy are powerful. It is really, to me, the beginning of the spiritual journey. If you can't have empathy with someone else's suffering, you're not really learning to love the other yet. But there is a problem with empathy. Can you imagine what it might be? If you always are feeling the suffering of everyone else around you, what's going to happen? You'll feel overwhelmed, burned out, and you'll go hide in your bedroom and not come out anymore, right? And that's a real thing. I mean, emotional overwhelm from too much empathy is a real thing. So how do you get to the next step? Well, the next step up is compassion. And there is actual research that shows there's a difference in the brain between people who are feeling empathy and people who are feeling compassion. And if you've moved from empathy to compassion, what you are able to do is to turn off your own distress circuits. So you can be present to the suffering of others without feeling personally distressed. It enables you to be an engaged warrior for love. It's a really important thing for us to learn how to do. So that's what I mean by compassion, finding that place one step past empathy, where I can at any time feel full empathy, but I can also, when I need to, turn off the distress circuit and do what I need to do to make a difference in the world. So what is wisdom? Wisdom also has 5 levels here, and at the bottom is the assumption that you believe there is an objective reality. If you don't, I don't kind of know where to go with this. But assuming that we believe there is such a thing like we can measure certain things, then we can gather data. And once you gather some data, whether it's weather data, whatever it is, then you can analyze it and get some information. You can form hypotheses and develop science. From that, over time, working with it, you can develop knowledge. But knowledge alone is not enough to solve really hard problems. We need to take the next step up to wisdom. And wisdom requires compassion. They have to work together. There's this depth of insight into human nature and the nature of the struggle that we all have as human beings on this planet that sort of kicks you up to the next notch of wisdom. Does that make sense? So that's what we're shooting for, to create a spiritually intelligent world. Now, how are we going to apply this? You know, other people disagree with me sometimes. They have different opinions. It's really hard. How do I have compassion towards these people who disagree with me, right? So one of the tools that I absolutely love is a tool called polarity management or polarity thinking. And we're going to teach this in the class tomorrow about how can you look at a situation. Some things are problems and there's a single right answer. 2 + 2 = 4. That's a problem to be solved. But many things in politics, maybe most things, are polarities to be managed where there's wisdom on each side of the aisle, so to speak. So how can we see the wisdom in the left and the wisdom in the right and take the best of both to achieve a higher level goal? And here's the illustration that we use all the time, because it's simple and fairly easy to understand. Which is better, inhaling or exhaling? You can only pick one. That's it. You can only pick one. Now, it's not going to work very well, is it? No, because you need the both and that's the and in the middle. We often make either or statements about things which are not either or problems. They're actually polarities. And the way a polarity works is the arrows help us illustrate that is you have to pulse between the poles. There's nothing like you don't find a midpoint and stay there. It's a never-ending motion. Because if you filled your lungs halfway and stopped, would that work? No, right? It's got to keep moving. So you inhale to bring in oxygen. That's the plus or the upside of inhaling. But if you inhale and stop, you experience a buildup of carbon dioxide. Like if you inhale and just refuse to exhale. Then eventually, you'll exhale, hopefully, and release the carbon dioxide. But if you exhale and stop, you'll start suffering oxygen deprivation, right? And that'll force you back to inhale. Now, isn't it beautiful that that makes an infinity symbol? Something deeply spiritual about this process. The North Pole and the South Pole matter because the North Pole shows us how we can agree on a true north, a goal that we can share. And so if the goal for you is to stay alive, you must balance these poles. If our goal is to have a healthy country, we must balance a whole lot of these polarities. All right, so here's some polarities we'll talk about tomorrow. Self and other. Who do you take care of? Yourself or other people? Both. And that's really important because if you fail to take care of yourself, eventually you cannot take care of others. Does that make sense? So that's how all of these work. You have to do both of them. Do you operate from heart or do you operate from head? Both. Yes, both. Because if you only operate from heart and you never use logic, there's a potential for problems. And if you only operate from logic and you never care about people's feelings, you'll probably end up at my coaching practice where we'll have to talk about how to save your job. Because guess what? People's feelings matter, right? So it's a both and here. All right. Do we take Democrats seriously or do we take Republicans seriously? Take them both seriously. Libertarians and Green Party, everybody is speaking for certain important poles that must be managed for our society to function. This is a wonderful tool to kind of help me be a little bit less sure of myself. and a little more open to other people's points of view. So I really like it. And kind of coming together, like the how question, I'm always guided by the nonviolent principles of Martin Luther King, who's one of my big heroes. And I printed off from myself, from the King website, the nonviolent principles. I thought I'd just share them with you quickly tonight because they're so inspiring. There are 6 nonviolent principles. The first one is that nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people. It is active, nonviolent resistance to evil, not to persons. Okay, so it's the resistance to evil. It is hard work spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Nonviolence seeks to win friendship and understanding. The purpose of nonviolence is the creation of the beloved community. Isn't that beautiful? It just gives me goosebumps. Nonviolence seeks to defeat injustice, not people. Nonviolence holds that suffering can educate and transform. If we suffer, even if it's unjust, it can transform us, and our unjust suffering, when witnessed by others, can be transformative for them. Nonviolence chooses love instead of hate. Nonviolence believes that the universe is on the side of justice. Nonviolence believes that God is a God of justice. When it comes to getting involved in governance and getting involved in the business of citizenship, Martin Luther King had this comment to make about why power matters. Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. So what can I do and what might you choose to do? Begin. You know, I made a commitment to God that this is my next portion of my career is working on this stuff. Scares me witless. Focus on a larger truth, a larger vision, and we'll probably have a lot of overlap of what that ideal America could be. Learn about everyone. Listen first. Unearth my own prejudgments. Apologize and get good at it, because when you take on these kind of conversations, people will get upset and you'll inadvertently say something. So just apologize and get good at that. Make personal connections every day. Relationships will be what heals us. And I'm not talking about Twitter or Facebook relationships, but face-to-face acts of care and authentic engagement. Acting with love, and then remembering self-care is crucial. If you're going to be an agent for change, an agent for love, you must love yourself as well. Take care of yourself and forgive yourself, because you will make some mistakes. And then I need to remind myself constantly that injustice to any is injustice to all. We, and you, I believe, can build bridges of understanding. And we are the people who are the solution to the problems we are facing. I believe God, evolution, the universe is calling us forward into the next level of our own development. And that's going to require us to see with new eyes, connect with people maybe we have never connected with before, give and receive love in new and more creative ways, and very much have an engaged form of spirituality. Martin Luther King had this to say. He said, what is the goal, you might ask? He said, the end, or the goal, is reconciliation. The end is redemption. The end is the creation of the beloved community. It is this type of spirit and this type of love that can transform opponents into friends. And that's how we'll make a world that works for all. Thank you very much.